nobody had a library like PS2. I mean, that there was so much stuff
True.
on PS2. It was unbelievable. Like I had a
True.
field day with that system just because there were so many different genres. I got to play so much different stuff. It was awesome, man. Awesome.
Huge library. It reminded me a lot of, I really want to say 360, because 360 had a vast library as well.
It did, man. That's a great bring up, Wes. It really evokes that kind of energy. Like everything is on the system. Like you could find stuff on PS3, but everything's coming to 360 unless it's first party
Mhm.
Sony. Welcome to the Enthusiast Gaming Podcast, where today we're going to be discussing some scary or spooky or eerie games. This is our Halloween episode for October 2024. With me, as always, is my good friend Wes. Wes, how you doing, sir?
What's up, my friend? What's
Not
going on?
much. Happy that it's September when we're recording this, but happy that Halloween is almost here. That's for sure. Get away from the damn summer. I've had enough of it, personally.
I'm so happy summer's over. I mean, I like summer because you could do more stuff like outside and daylight savings and stuff, but I can't stand the heat. So bring on the snow for me, man.
Absolutely. Fall, winter, glorious months. Oktoberfest in hand. Tis the season, ladies and gentlemen. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. If you guys like what you hear today, please consider supporting us over on Patreon, patreon.com/nerdenthusiast. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. Everything you guys put back into there goes right back into the shows, and we truly appreciate your support. Shout out this month to Bernardo. Thank you for your support over there, Bernardo. We really appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Bernardo.
You guys can get a shout out too over at I think it's the $3 tier. So check that out over there. Also, if you guys like what you hear, please consider giving us a 5-star review over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That really does help us out in the algorithm. Wes, the topics we're going to discuss today: overlooked eerie games. We have a list of a few of those. We're going to be talking about the evolution of a franchise. This is an ongoing segment we do from time to time. This time, to keep with the season, Castlevania. Then we're going to wrap
Ooh.
things up with a pulse check, where we have some more eerie games in that section of the show. But let's start out with the overlooked eerie games that we put on this list. Now, we've kind of sort of done this over the past 3 years, so this is an ever-evolving list. We've changed the name of the title about 15 different times, so it does include different horror games, but none of those have been mentioned yet that I'm aware of. Went back and listened to the other 2 episodes from previous Octobers. Wes, where would you like to begin with the overlooked eerie
Ooh.
games?
You know what? I'm gonna go with one for PS1.
Okay.
It was a game from Square, and it was Parasite Eve.
Very popular at the time.
Parasite Eve was very popular. It was built. It was a survival horror role playing game. If that makes sense.
I mean, it was from Square, so it's all squaring up.
It had some
Terrible pun.
RPG elements, definitely. It was like an RPG, but it was set in. It had a survival horror theme, and your main character would attain powers, and she fought creatures, and uh, it was good, very very good, very cinematic. It was very popular when it came out.
Yeah, I remember it selling really well. I never played it. I mean, the RPG thing kind of sucked the life out of it for me. I was like, oh, Resident Evil with RPG? I'm good. No thanks. Like, uh, if you guys know, I'm not huge in RPGs, but to its point, I mean, it was really really popular. Did they make 2 of them on PS1 if I'm remembering correctly?
They made a second one,
Okay.
but they changed the mechanics a little bit of the second one, and the second one became more like more of an action adventure game than a survival horror RPG.
I might have to check
Yeah,
out
they
the
kind of
second one
changed a
then.
little bit. It was, I mean, the first one is still like the best. Second one is good, but
Did you ever? I know for a fact they made a third one, but that was exclusive to PSP, I believe. Did you ever
I
delve into that one?
I didn't. I didn't. I saw it several times come across, and I never took the time, and it slipped through my fingers.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was any good or not, but I'd imagine that game is probably one, maybe not the most expensive PSP games, but it's probably up there in price. I would imagine. I don't think that game probably sold a ton of copies.
Yeah, I'll probably hunt it down eventually.
Next up is another one, just one generation later. We have a couple on this generation of consoles. This is a PS2 game that I remember seeing plenty of, and I heard pretty good things about it, but I don't remember a lot about it. So Wes, give me your thoughts on Cold Fear on PS2.
Cold Fear. So okay, at around this same time, there was a bunch of games that kind of mirrored each other. Like there was a Carrier came out, that was on the Dreamcast, but it took place on a boat. Um, and then you had Resident Evil that blew up, so everybody tried to capture that Resident Evil feel. So Cold Fear took place on a Russian whaler, and you were part of a team sent to investigate the disappearance of another team, but then your team gets killed and you're the only one left, and there's like, so you're trying to figure out like these creatures, and that killed everybody. So it was very reminiscent of The Thing, because we spoke about The Thing uh, a while back.
Yeah, and they're remastering that, which I brought up. I'm stoked to see that remaster because I never played the original Xbox One.
That was a great game. That was such a great game. So Cold Fear was, it took a little bit of that. It took a little bit of Resident Evil. Took a little bit of Carrier, and it just kind of made it its own. It was pretty good. It wasn't fantastic because it was like one and done.
Yeah, I looked it up. It looks like DarkWorks published it or developed it. I'm not sure
Mm.
what else they made. I'm not sure of their history. Actually, it says they made Alone in the Dark: A New Nightmare in 2001. So maybe not the best history, but they have done some stuff. Ubisoft was the one who published this as
Yep.
well.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I think Ubisoft put it out. So I mean, it got it got some notoriety, because it was from Ubisoft.
Hmm.
It was fine. It wasn't as scary as you would think it was, but it was more heavy on the action side.
Now, during this period of time, another title I remember seeing quite a bit. Maybe this was a little bit more revered, but I also never. As you're gonna get the theme, these are a lot of West heavy games. I haven't played this one either, but I do remember seeing it quite often. Was Extermination on PS2 as well. Um,
Mhm.
that one was a bit better, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was the same. It was
Okay.
very. It was an early PS2 game, early PS2 survival horror.
Okay.
Took place. I want to say that took place in the Arctic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. The cover was like all white. I remember that for sure.
yeah, and it was reminiscent of Cold Fear. Like I said, a lot of these games kind of borrow from each other.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
this just it was just you're running around this base with alien creatures that's trying to kill you. You're trying to kill them. Again, it's like the same formula rehashed with a different coat of paint.
Yeah, so the developer behind this one was Deep Space, who I'm not really familiar with, but Sony published it. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That was a Sony first party title.
Well, second party.
Second party.
Deep
Second
Space
party.
wasn't their
Yeah.
developer. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I mean,
It was fine. It was what it was.
here's the thing: PS2 I love so much for one specific reason. It had one of the most vast libraries of any other system. Like even at the time, like Xbox had a pretty good library, GameCube too. But I mean, you're kind of there for the exclusives for the most part. But nobody had a library like PS2. I mean that there was so much stuff on
True.
PS2. It was unbelievable. Like I had a
True.
field day with that system just because there were so many different genres. I got to play so much different stuff. It was awesome, man. Awesome.
That's very true. Huge library. It reminded me a lot of, I really want to say 360, because 360 had a vast library as well.
It did, man. That's a great bring up, Wes. Yeah, it really evokes that kind of energy. Like everything is on the system. Like you could find stuff on PS3, but everything's coming to 360 unless it's first party
Mhm.
Sony.
Yeah, now PS2 had a good mix of everything. Everything. Whatever genre you liked, it was on there.
Definitely. Now the next stuff we're going to talk about, I'm going to let you take it away because I I tried to like the TV show. It was friggin' terrible. I don't care. I go ahead and talk about this awful show that they turned into a video game. That was a comic
Uh,
book.
there was a comic book that they turned into a TV show, which they turned into a game that you don't like.
I don't know.
That game is The Walking Dead. Uh, the show started off really good.
That first
I
episode was laughable. Laughable.
what?
I could not watch the show after that. I was like, this is so bad. It felt like a cheesy like a D movie. It wasn't even like a B movie, man. Like it was awful. The actors were bad. I'm not even
You
gonna get
thought
into it.
so? Oh man, I loved the show up until I don't know. I got bored after I don't can't even remember the season, but it just kind of it was just rinse and repeat. So it just kind of I fell off.
Well, I heard after season one they had like a budget and like the show actually got better in season two. But it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, your first episode killed it for me. I'm not interested anymore.
But it's a typical zombie story, with Walking Dead. You had a group of people find a place to stay, meet some baddies, fight the baddies. In the meantime, killing all these zombies. Go to the next town, meet some people, fight some baddies, kill a bunch of zombies. Like I said, and it was like season after season of the same thing, just
Yeah.
different bad guys. And I was like, I think I'm done. But Telltale made a game based on The Walking Dead, and it was kind of I don't want to call it like Telltale is known for their I guess would you call them pick your own adventure
Sure,
type
it's something
stuff?
like that. It's a Quantic Dream like if you're familiar with their games. Like
Mhm.
you're making choices and the decisions you make affect the outcome of the game, and there's all these paths that can happen depending on the choices that you make. It's heavily focused on story, less focused
Yes.
on gameplay.
Yeah, very little, if any, action at all. There was some puzzle solving. You had to look for stuff, but it was all choices. Story was really, really good. Um, and I remember it getting really popular because it introduced a new character called Clementine, and she like her character never existed on the show. It was made for this game, and then people just kind of gravitated towards her, and they kept asking for this character. And they did multiple seasons of The Walking Dead. And they incorporated some people from the show into it, but it was
When you're saying multiple seasons, you're talking about how the game was like set up in seasons. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Yep, they did like a season one, and then they did a season two. But yeah, Telltale did a series of Walking Dead games, and they were good. They were really good.
I'll take your word for it. Not, I know that that first Telltale game won like a bunch of the awards, like got Game of the Year and stuff like that. But I don't know. I can't do Walking Dead like I mentioned. But you were telling me that there's also another Walking Dead game that was pretty good. I have no familiarity with this as well, again because it's Walking Dead. But
Oh, that
what
was
was the other
a
one?
it was a first person shooter with Daryl Dixon. He was like one of the characters, one of the main characters from the show. I didn't say it was good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was you okay. By now everybody knows I will try to find some kind of positive.
Mhm.
It was just it
So
wasn't
if
very
Wes
good.
is there, it's like a 2 out of 10. If Wes is saying it, if Wes is giving it like a 5 or 6, it's like a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, it was just other than the title of The Walking Dead, it was just eh.
Do you remember the subtitle to it at all?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, 'cause I own it. Survival Instinct.
What system was that for? PS4?
PS3. PS3 and 360.
Really? Hmm.
Hmm. Walking Dead Survival Instinct.
Okay.
It was just, for first person shooter set in the Walking Dead universe. You played as the main one of the main characters from the show. It was
Sounds about right.
yeah.
Now, I think this next game is really cool. I've never gotten into it before, but as we talked about really briefly with the thing, this game is also getting a remake. I think limited run games. I think they're publishing it. I don't know who's developing it, but it's a remake of Clock Tower, which was, if I'm not
Mm,
mistaken, it was originally an SNES game or Super Famicom. Is that correct?
no, PS1.
Was it?
PS1.
I don't think that's right. I gotta Google this, Wes.
Yeah, PS1 because you were trying to run from Scissor Man.
I don't think this is true. Clock Tower game. Let's see. Good old Wikipedia. That's how you know it's for real. Uh, Super Famicom in Japan was the first one,
Really?
1995,
Okay.
but it was never released in America. So that's probably another reason why they're doing this remake. So the next one, when you're correct, was PS1. This was the first time it was localized outside of Japan, and that was Clock Tower 2: The Struggle Within. Came out in 1998. So the first one was a Super Famicom exclusive.
Hmm.
Sorry, I was pretty confident in that. I just did. I don't want to try to like throw you under the bus or anything.
No, because I remember it's funny because we had recently got a copy of Clock Tower at Level Up
For
um,
PS1.
for PS1, like the first
Nice.
one, and it was
Did they call it Clock Tower 2 or did it just say
no,
Clock Tower?
it was just called Clock Tower.
All right, so they're doing that Final Fantasy bull crap where they're like, oh, we're
Hmm.
just gonna. It's the first time in the U.S. So just call it Clock Tower.
Yeah, it was just called Clock Tower, and it was man, that was a hefty penny. We
Oh
sold it.
yeah,
It didn't last long at all.
how much was it?
350, 400
Yep,
bucks.
dude, those survivor horror games that were on PS1 that were not titled Resident Evil or Silent Hill. I mean, even some of the Silent Hill games are pretty expensive, but yeah, man. I own one game. It's probably around that price. It's called Shadow Tower. It's probably like a $300 game,
Hmm.
250 something like that.
PS1?
Yeah, it's PS1.
Hmm.
A lot of those survivor horror games are expensive, man. Those and the RPGs, those are the ones you want to
Oh yeah,
scout out, man.
definitely.
But go ahead, tell me more about it, because again, I don't know anything about this game other than I always thought it looked really, really cool.
Man, my memory doesn't serve me well on this one. Um, I can't remember if it was a point and click adventure, or if it was you had control of the character. But I do remember Scissor Man. Like that was the whole point. You had to run away from Scissor Man.
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing that in videos and stuff. Yeah, so Clock Tower, it's called Clock Tower Rewind. Limited Run Games is definitely publishing it because it's
Yep,
on their site.
yep.
Does it tell me a developer though?
I did see Limited Run is bringing it back out.
Yeah, I don't know if like one of their teams are developing because they have the. If you didn't know, Limited Run has an engine called the Carbon Engine, and that's like what they use to remake and remaster like a bunch of old games. It's supposed to be like a really efficient way of doing things. It might have been just created by them on the Carbon
Mhm.
Engine. That's really cool that they're bringing out the Japanese Super Famicom version to the U.S. Like that. That's awesome, man.
You gonna get it?
Probably not. Um, Maybe if it's me. I'm checking that it's already sold out, Wes. So no, I'm not.
Okay. All right. So pre-orders already closed.
Yeah, but you know what Limited Run does? They'll put it out at Best Buy and Amazon sometimes, so you might get a second chance on this with a different cover variant at Best Buy or Amazon.
Okay.
So
You know what?
maybe it pops up there.
Speaking of limited run, I just need to throw another game that I don't know how you feel about it, but they're bringing it back. Um, Lollipop Chainsaw.
I bought this late when it was super cheap. I probably got the game for like 10 or
Game
15
was
bucks.
Game was great.
I heard it was very good. I think it's cool they're bringing that back. They're also bringing back Shadow of the Damned, which is another great PS3 360 title by Grasshopper manufacturer. And yeah, I think both those games deserve a second look for people. I
Yeah,
didn't
because
pick up the remake just
Lolli-
because I want the original. Like I never played the original. I still have it, so I'll probably play that one if I'm going to play one.
Lollipop Chainsaw was a straight up action hack and slash with zombies.
Yeah, and it was either written or directed by James Gunn, which is crazy.
Oh, you mean I actually liked something James Gunn did? Ugh.
I think it was James Gunn. It was one of those guys who's like big into movies. I'm pretty sure it was that name sound like popped in my mind first. I'm pretty sure it was him. What didn't you like that he's done?
I just don't like James Gunn.
I don't know anything about him. I
I
don't watch movies.
Guardians of the Galaxy I couldn't stand.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
Really?
but
You didn't like the first one? I heard the first one
I
was very
hated it.
good.
I hated it.
Oh, okay.
I hated it. Actually, I did like Brightburn. James Gunn did Brightburn, and I did like that.
Okay.
That was the whole Superman ish movie. Like if Superman was bad, he was just a kid that had Superman's powers, and he was
That
just like
sounds pretty cool, man.
he was like killing people.
That sounds awesome. But did he have like a DC license to use like
Nope,
this?
nope.
Okay, so it was just like a okay.
It was just a random superhero. But yeah,
That sounds pretty interesting. I'd probably like that too. Like I don't like most superhero movies, but I really really like the Joker. Like the Joker was an awesome, but it wasn't like a superhero movie. You know, I mean, it kind of was, but it really wasn't. You know, a sequel's coming out to that soon. I think I'll watch that.
yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Joaquin Phoenix, man, top tier actor.
he was good. He was good. Won an Oscar for it.
He deserved to have two Oscars. Johnny Cash, man, he got robbed. Wes robbed.
Oh man.
Sorry, I know we just went on a
Yeah,
quick
no, I
movie tangent.
know. We just kind of just I was like totally just sidetracked, but like we were talking about limited run and Lollipop Chainsaw just popped in my head.
Yep.
Um, just kind of just a quick shout out because it was well, it was kind of like a horror game.
I got to go back and play it. I have it on the Xbox 360. That's where I would want to play it just because the other thing with remakes and stuff, not to go on another tangent, but real quick, I don't know if like the licensed music is the same. I don't know what they're actually changing. Like I'd rather see the original version than like stuff they may have cut out or stuff they might
Mhm.
have modified. I'd rather go back and play the original.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
All right, these next ones I want to kind of bundle together. We can talk about them individually, but instead of announcing one at a time, we have a section of Resident Evil here. Now, I know you're saying to yourself, "What do you mean Resident Evil?" This is stuff that's not talked about as often. So the most notable one on here is Code Veronica, but we're also going to be discussing Revelations and the one that no one cares about, Survivor. Which was Survivor a light gun game, or was that just like a okay? It was a light gun game.
Mhm.
Okay, and no one talks about that game ever,
No,
ever.
ever.
But where do you want to start with those three, Wes?
Oh, you know what? We might as well start at the top. You mentioned it, Code Veronica. And Code Veronica is probably my favorite Resident Evil game.
Yeah, it's really good. I never beat the game, unfortunately. I feel like that's like my theme with Resident Evil. Like I played so many Resident Evil games, and I don't know that I've beaten any of them. Maybe the first one, maybe the second one. I don't remember, but I don't think I beat Code Veronica. But it was very very good.
No, it was so good. It had Claire and
Hmm.
Chris,
Hmm.
and it took place after the second one.
Right. This was originally supposed to be Resident Evil 3. And because they were bringing it to the Dreamcast, they were like, we can't call this Resident Evil 3. So they just named it Code Veronica X, or Code Veronica at the time.
Code Veronica, yeah, and then it was X when it came on PS2.
Hmm.
I'm so happy. I've been asking for a Code Veronica remake forever because they did. They remade one. Two, three, four. Like Code Veronica, they have to give me a remake.
Yeah, yeah. Capcom's doing that, and they're also working on what are they up to? Nine. Nine's the next one, right?
Nine's
So
a next official one. Yeah.
those are the two games they're working on. Thank God they didn't skip Code Veronica. Like I know a lot of people wanted Zero also, and then there's already people talking about 5 and 6. I'm like, you 5 and 6 people need to chill the hell out. Like y'all need to wait. First of all, Code Veronica needs its due, which it's getting, thank God. Then they need to go back and redo the first one again. Like it's been since
I,
GameCube.
I don't know, man.
Maybe not complete update, but like give it a graphical like call. Like Wes, it was GameCube, man.
But it was. Yeah, but then they remastered it on Xbox One and
Did they?
PS4. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was just like a straight up port. I didn't know they like remastered it.
They cleaned it up a little bit, but I mean it's not like a remake, a complete remake from the ground up. It's like they polished it up a little bit, but it's still I'm like it's I even though the first one is all time classic, it's like we did it the original, then we did it again with the GameCube version. I'm like, I don't necessarily need a remake of the first one.
So you'd rather than do? Would you? All right. So they're doing Code Veronica.
Hmm.
What's next? Like as far as their old catalog goes, not their new stuff. Do they go to 5? Do they go to 6? Do they go to 0?
See, five. You figure 5 and 6 were on
360, PS3.
360 and PS3, which was they were, and that was good enough.
Mm-hmm.
How much better can they get if they remaster those or remake those? I know because the only ones left are like 1 and 0. I don't know. Zero, I was not a big fan of anyway.
It was cool on the train. It
It
was
was
it was
okay.
different. The only thing I didn't like about the train was it's so close quarters, so you can't go like you're so confined. Like, which I'm sure that was a point, but it does kind of get old. Like, let me move around a little bit, just a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah. So we'll see. But Code Veronica, one of my favorites.
for sure.
Probably the best Resident Evil game in my opinion. Um, Story wise was great. It had the tank controls, but top notch. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
We also got Revelations, which was the DS versions, and I haven't touched these whatsoever. I know very, very little about these, so whatever you want to add. These are supposed to be very good games, and I know they've remastered them. I think on the
Mhm.
Switch, and they've done
Mhm.
some stuff to these games, but I don't know anything about them at all. So what do you have to say about
Yeah,
Revelations?
The first Revelation was like it took place on a boat. We talked about that earlier. Survival horror on a boat. But it was Resident Evil on a boat. It featured Jill as like the main character, and but the whole story you were on a boat, and it was Resident Evil on a boat.
Sounds cool.
It
Train, boat.
was-
That's what they're doing. Like, all right, what can we do next?
the second one though, they you weren't on a boat, but it featured Barry, and it was good. Second one was really good.
Did you play these on the DS, or did you play them later on when they like remastered them?
The first one I played on DS, but then I played it when they remastered it on the console.
Hmm.
So I played Revelation on Xbox.
Oh yeah, they did redo those
Yeah.
for those other systems. That's
And
right.
then Revelation 2, yeah, that came to console also. So well, 2 was never a DS game. 2 went straight to console.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's
And that
probably
was
a smart choice. I mean,
yeah.
the DS was super popular, but it's also like, you really want to play Resident Evil on a DS when you can play it on a console.
Yeah, because Revelation 2, I want to say featured Claire and Barry, like two separate stories, but they were good. Definitely notable in the lineup of the Resident Evil titles. Not to be overlooked.
I mean, Survivor now. This is something that really appeals to me just because it's a like-on game. But I have not delved into the library of like-on games on PS1 yet. One day I'm going to, and I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, and it's going to cost me some money probably. Uh, but I will get a like-on eventually, and this may be something I pick up just out of like a morbid curiosity, because people crapped all over this game, and I don't know if it was because it was a like-on game and people weren't happy about that part of it. Was this even a good like-on game? If it was a bad like-on game, that's like a whole other tier of like, all right, you pissed off everybody who likes Resident Evil because it's not a Resident Evil game. Then you made it a like-on game, and it's not even a good one to boot.
Nope.
I wonder what the Metacritic is. I'm gonna look that
it
up really quick. Tell me about it while I look this up.
was just it was a gun game. It felt like House of the Dead. It tried to be House of the Dead,
House of the Okay.
but it wasn't nowhere close.
Oh yeah, this thing has an overall score from critics. Has a score of 39, and then it has a user score of 6.1. Yeah,
Yeah, it
its
just was
best
not.
reviews are like 70s. So yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
it was.
Get your Survivor if you feel like it.
Since we're on the Resident Evil front, did you play Outbreak?
No, no. A lot of the offshoots I did not play. I mostly played the
Okay,
main stories, and again, didn't beat the majority of them.
okay. Because wasn't Outbreak the one that you could play online with like four people, and you were just civilians trying to get out of Raccoon City?
I'm pretty sure this was an Xbox 360 game, correct?
No, PS2.
PS2. Then what the hell? There was definitely a multiplayer focused one on Xbox 360. Weird.
You sure?
Yeah. Operation Raccoon City. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
And I think that was a multiplayer focused one. Let's see.
Okay, that might be the one then I'm thinking of. Not Outbreak.
But I think Outbreak was too. Yeah, this is a third person shooter, online playability.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Outbreak was, yeah. You could do four-player on Outbreak.
yeah, so Outbreak must have been the first kind of
Mhm.
version of this almost. And then Raccoon City wasn't like a direct sequel or anything, but the same idea.
Yeah. Because I think one you played as civilians. I think the other you played as like Team Bravo or something. Like you were a mercenary or something.
I've
Okay.
multiplayer is not my forte. I definitely didn't touch either of these, and I even today I have no ambition to check those out. Not that you even could. I mean, the servers are turned off, so unless they have bots in the game, no one's checking that stuff out now. But did you play either one of those?
I remember doing Outbreak way back when. I didn't play it online. I did single player and then had bots control the other three.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, man. Eh.
Yeah, that faces exactly what I'm thinking. I mean, an online multiplayer game, you need to have great gameplay. When I think of great gameplay, Resident Evil is never on that list. I mean, granted, maybe it is now with like the remake of 2 and 3, but back then, dude, their gameplay was like that was like the worst part of their games, probably. The tank controls, get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Hey, but you know what? You got used to them.
Sure, sure. I went back and I played a Tomb Raider on PS1, like the first Tomb Raider.
Mhm.
I don't know how we did any of that, man. I have no idea how we did any of it, Wes. All right, Wes, you brought out these next two titles for our Eerie games to play. I haven't played either one of these. I think I feel like I either played a demo or something of Outlast, but I really don't remember. It could have been a completely different game. So I don't say that I've played it because I can't recall. But have you played Outlast or Five Nights
Well,
at Freddy's?
Outlast. I was too scared to play Outlast.
Okay.
Everybody says how scary it was because it took place all in the dark.
Was
It's like
that
you
was that
were
the one with Slender Man?
no, no, you were like a reporter in like an insane asylum or something,
Okay.
and it was all green because you had like night vision goggles on.
I remember the greenness. I do remember that.
Yeah, because it all took place in the dark. So you had these night vision goggles so you could see.
Was this a game where you do not fight at all? There's like no combat, you just run.
I think so.
Okay.
Like I said, I was too scared to play because everybody said how scary it was. Because it's a lot of jump scares because again it takes place in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I think I played part of this game or something, but I don't really know. My memory's terrible. I have no idea. Could be a completely different game, but it does look really cool. I heard they're really good. They're popular games. Something to consider checking out, especially during the Halloween season. This one's probably geared a little bit more towards the younger audience, but super popular title, just Five Nights at Freddy's. I know there's like tons of games, especially on PC. I'm not familiar with any of them. What would you like to say about?
I did you see the movie?
No.
Huh? I played the first game a little bit. Basically, you are a security guard in this Chuck E. Cheese type place,
That's kind of
and
cool.
Yeah, and with the animatronics, and at night the animatronics come to life. But you have to kind of monitor them on your camera
Okay.
to because they're trying to get in your room
Hmm.
that you're in. So it's definitely very creepy, definitely very scary. But it was geared towards kids. Uh, you know, and
Yeah,
they did a bunch of them.
I remember the later years that I've worked at GameStop, which at this point was probably 4 years ago or something was the
Mhm.
last time I worked there. But I remember how popular it was, and kids would always come and talk about it, and they would ask me questions like, "I have no idea." I was like, "I have the stuff. I can see if I have something you want, but I don't know anything about this thing that you're
Yeah,
into."
it's hugely popular. I mean, I watched the movie. They made a movie about it, and it was okay. If you've never played the game, you watching the movie, okay, this is what the game is about. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, super popular. Something to check out, especially again if you have kids. Kids are really into this for some reason. Don't know why. You know, Probably because it's creepy and not like too creepily. Maybe like Gremlins, something like that. I don't know.
Another classic.
Oh, Gremlins is great. Come on, come on. All right, guys. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the evolution of a franchise. This, again, as I mentioned, is an ongoing segment that we do from time to time. This one's going to be about Castlevania. Now, there's a lot we can say about Castlevania. There's a lot of history. There's a ton of games. There's different
Mhm.
timelines. In fact, there's if you consider the official timeline by Igarashi, he considered his timeline basically excluded four titles, which doesn't include Legends, the two Castlevania games from '64, or Circle of the Moon. So Igarashi doesn't consider those on his timeline at all. There's different years that these games take place. I mean, we could look at this at many different angles. I'm just going to talk to it overall, kind of briefly, just starting from the
Mhm.
beginning, kind of going through time. And I'm going to segment these off where it's not following years of release per se, but more kind of grouping them together so it makes a little bit more sense. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds good.
Okay. So for the first group of games, I'll get this out in the beginning. The game originally released as a Famicom Disk System game. It was called Akumajo Dracula or Demon Castle Dracula on Famicom's Disk System. Later, it
Mhm.
came out as Vampire Killer on MXS home computers. So if you're familiar with those were kind of like the origins or so of Castlevania. When it released in the US, North America, Castlevania was released on the NES, and this is really where it grew to popularity. There was Castlevania, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, Castlevania 3. But those are the three main ones, which is where I would like to begin. What's your familiarity with 1, 2, and 3 on NES, Wes?
Very little. I mean, I didn't really get turned on to Castlevania until 4,
Okay.
believe it or not, with Super
Super Nintendo.
Nintendo. I was familiar with Castlevania. I think I played a little bit of 2, but I really didn't like appreciate it until Super Nintendo.
Yeah, 2 is the probably the hardest one to get into of those
Mhm.
three. It's very not open world, but like
Mhm.
you can kind of go through different paths and different things. But there's a lot of obtuseness to the game. I think I like 1 better than 2.
Mhm.
But 3 is the standout for me out of those. Like 3 is fantastic. Much like Resident Evil, I barely beat any Castlevania games, but I played
All of them.
most of them. I'm trying to think if there's any I haven't played. The 3D ones. When we get to that, we'll talk about that separately. But this is the reason I'm segmenting it off, right? But out of those original NES ones, I think the 3 is definitely the best. Um,
Mhm.
there's more stuff to do. The gameplay is better. You can play as different characters in the game that have different abilities. There's a lot of cool stuff happening with Castlevania 3. But just really standout titles in the NES, which they had a horror theme to it, right? Like, even though you wouldn't really consider them a horror game per se, there's like horror or gothic themes really shine through because there was a lot of like, you know, more geared towards kids on NES. Granted, you had stuff like, where you're shooting guns and things like that, but Castlevania was something definitely special during that
Mhm.
generation. Now, those games are all side scrollers. You have a whip as your main
Yeah.
weapon, for the most part. Throughout those, again, 3, you're playing as different characters and have different abilities and stuff like that. Um, Then we had some GB games, original Game Boy, which again I'm not familiar with these. I never played Legends, Castlevania: The Adventure, or Castlevania 2: Belmont's Revenge. There was also Kid Dracula on Game Boy Color, which released in Japan. That would later be released in the US um, in a compilation as well. I don't really have much to say about the GB games. They're not really what I consider. I mean, they're part of Castlevania, right? But I still don't really have any drive or ambition to go back and play any of those games. Did you
No,
play any of those ones?
no. I did go back and play, like I said, little years later. I did go back and play, the original Castlevania for NES and stuff like that. But I mean, that's where it
Nice.
started. That's where it started. It's great.
Yeah, those first three games are pretty damn good, man. And then we got to the point where you started playing, right, Wes? So this was like the SNES generation.
Hmm.
Now there was two games on there, which was Castlevania 4 and Dracula X. Which game did you
Hmm.
start with?
I started with four.
Okay,
I started with four because it was an early release for the Super Nintendo. So when I got my Super Nintendo, that was one of the games I got. Like it was that, Contra, Mario World. Yeah. So Castle, that was like and then that's when I played from beginning to end, and I was like, oh wow, this is good.
yeah, the gameplay really got beefed up in that one.
Hmm.
Unlike the 1, 2, and 3, where 1, 2, and 3, if you commit to a jump, you committed to a jump. You're done. Like not in 4 though. 4 you could kind of change your position midair. You have 8-way diagonals for the
Hmm.
whip, so you can whip
Hmm.
all over the place.
Yep.
Um, there's a lot of cool gameplay elements that were improved, and it had Mode 7, which was a huge part of Super
Hmm.
Nintendo, right? So the scrolling and stuff was awesome. They had really good graphics. Huge upgrade for Castlevania. A great place to start. I don't think it's the best Castlevania game, but I think it's damn good.
It was
And
good.
certainly, gameplay wise, is one of the best places to start.
It was good. Yeah. And then at that point was when I was like heavily into importing. So then I imported Dracula X for my Super
Nice.
Nintendo. It was all in Japanese, so it was a little tough. But and the reason I got it because it never came to America.
Well, Dracula X was Rondo of Blood, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, Dracula X was a different rendition. It's like, all right, so Rondo, real quick, guys. Rondo of Blood came out on the TurboGrafx 16. It
Hmm.
was on the CD version too, so it had like really good like audio. It had really good, everything.
Hmm.
But they had to actually water the game down to be on the SNES, and that's the version that Dracula S was. So I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying it's not the same as Rondo of Blood. It's similar, but they had to change a lot of stuff to get it to work on the SNES that way.
Yeah, but it had the same character. You played as Trevor. Trevor. Yes. So if anybody doesn't know the whole history of Castlevania,
Rondo was Richter, wasn't it?
Richter. Thank you. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking of. Richter. Um, you you play as the main character is part of the Belmont clan.
But yeah, so Dracula X, did you enjoy it? Because again, it's not the same as it is Rondo of Blood essentially, but it's not quite the same. I never played
I
Dracula
did.
X.
I did. It's Castlevania. So it was, if you like Castlevania, you'll like it.
As I mentioned a minute ago, TurboGrafx 16 had Rondo of Blood, which is many consider that the best Castlevania game, or if not that one, the next one we're going to mention, of course. But Rondo of Blood, I've only played that more recently. They released it on like PS4,
Hmm.
and I played that version, like the remade version on that, because they released it on PSP, but I never had a PSP, so I didn't play that version either, and I never had a TurboGrafx. But I want to say the TurboGrafx one only came out in Japan. Also, I think Rondo of Blood was a Japan
Hmm.
exclusive. Then, so you couldn't, unless you had an import or something, you couldn't play it on TurboGrafx, and then eventually you could play it on PSP, and then finally during the PS4 generation, they were like, here's a port, and that's where I first played it. And I know for a fact I didn't beat it, but man, the gameplay and the graphics are just fantastic.
Yeah.
Rondo of
Yeah.
Blood.
It was good stuff. It was good stuff. Because then from there we move on to the Genesis. For the longest time Castlevania was considered a Nintendo property. you
Hmm.
know. But Konami surprised Sega fans with Castlevania Bloodline.
Yeah, Bloodlines is another really good game.
It's super hard though.
Yeah, yeah, I think Konami just liked to punish people on the Genesis, like Contra Hardcore beat the dude. That game is Bloodlines was pretty tough. I mean, dude, there's some hard ass games on Genesis, um, but I think that's more indicative of those times, between NES, SNES, Genesis. Those games beat the hell out of you.
Yeah, it was tough. And to find Bloodline now for the Genesis, that game is super expensive.
Yeah, I don't think I have it. I have I have it on a compilation or
Mhm.
multiple compilations, but I don't own the OG, and I would like to get that at some point for sure. The same can be said about Symphony of the Night, which I think is the best Castlevania game. I don't own the PS1 version. I own multiple variations. The first place I played it was PS Vita.
Mhm.
Uh, I played it on PS4. I mean, this game's been ported a bunch of times to a bunch of systems, but Symphony of the Night is just an all around banger. The music, first of all,
Mhm.
I forgot to mention this. Almost all the Castlevania music is fantastic. There's some that
Yep.
aren't great, but overall fantastic. And Symphony of the Night is a standout. I mean, every song in there is like so memorable. Like it's something you could just put on Spotify and go throughout your day. And like this is awesome. This day is awesome because this music is on.
Oh man, Symphony of the Night introduced a lot more people to Castlevania. It was I remember when it came out and seeing it and seeing the hand drawn graphics.
Hmm.
Alucard was the main character, which is Dracula spelled backwards. Whoever doesn't know,
And it's
and
Dracula's son.
it is Dracula's son, and it played. It looked fantastic. The colors were bright. It animated so well,
Oh man.
and it was so good. But like I said, that opened up. It's kind of like how Final Fantasy VII opened up a whole bunch of people to role playing games and introduced them to Final Fantasy. Castlevania Symphony of the Night introduced a whole new audience to that series.
Right. I mean, this is also like this is the point where it became like a Metroidvania, right? That's where we get that title from,
Mm-hmm.
is a mix of Metroid and Castlevania. And the gameplay really evolved. So we talked about the evolution, like NES to SNES.
Mm-hmm.
With the evolution of the gameplay, the 8-way whip, the scrolling that had gotten there from like Mode 7. Uh, Now we're at a point where the game is like, not I wouldn't. It's not entirely different, but it's very different. Like there's a lot more about exploring, finding
Mm-hmm.
secrets. There's hidden stuff throughout the game.
Yep.
Um, Obviously, where the multiple endings, different endings you could do depending on what you do. I mean, this is like the exploring factor is really what gets me about games. So like, if you guys know anything about me, like I love these Metroidvania style games, but I also deeply, deeply love The Legend of Zelda. And I don't love Zelda because of the story. I think most of their stories are kind of crap, honestly. But the exploration is like second to none, man. Go through Breath of the Wild, go through Tears of the Kingdom. It is all about exploring, and I just get lost in those worlds, Wes. And the same thing with Symphony of the Night. Just totally lost in this. Like I could spend all day in this freaking castle. This is amazing.
Oh yeah. No, I agree with you. Symphony of the Night was definitely something special. Definitely something special. To this day, it's still special.
Oh yeah. Now that leads right into the GBA games, which again kept that Symphony of the Night esque, aesthetic with the 32-bit, GBA. So you're getting, some more sprite work and stuff like that. Just another, a lot of people aren't crazy about Circle of the Moon. I think Circle of the Moon's a good game, but clearly Harmony of Dissonance, Aria of
Mm-hmm.
Sorrow are the more standout titles. A lot of people think Aria of Sorrow is the best of that trilogy of games, but this really keeps the Metroidvania style going from the PS1 to the GBA.
Yeah, Aria of Sorrow. I have to agree. I think that was I like that better than Harmony of Distance.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I agree with you. It definitely it followed suit after Symphony of the Night with that whole feel,
It did.
and it kept it going.
And then they expanded upon those with the awesome DS games, right? There was Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, Order of Ecclesia. Um, that I still have to get that one. I don't
See,
have
I
that.
didn't do any of those.
They're extensions of the GBA. They just they're more Metroidvanias that are like
Mm.
there's differences. Okay, I'm not gonna get into every detail about all, but there are differences. But they are like if you like the Metroidvania style, games, you need Symphony of the Night, the three GBA games, the three DS games. A great way to get them now. These have all been released digitally. The
Mm.
three GBA games you can probably buy for under $20. The 3DS games just got re-released. Again, probably like $20 or less. So definitely check those out. I mean, those are great Castlevania games overall for the most part. You can't go wrong with any of those 7 titles. But you have to like the Metroidvania style. If you don't, you might just like the classics, like the style of 1, 2, and 3, or 4. Then we got now again. I'm not following a specific timeline, right? I'm just grouping these together because in between all of these games, we got the 3D games.
Mm-hmm.
So before I say anything, I'm going to give you a caveat. I don't care about the 3D games. Would I try a new one if it came out tomorrow? Probably. Do I have any ambition to go back and play these? Not really. No. Overall, they're not very good. They're not like high rated, and most people are just like very at the best they're indifferent to the all the 3D Castlevania games. So there's like Laminate of oh my gosh, what is it called? Laminate of something that was on PS2.
Innocence,
Laminate of Innocence. That sounds right.
innocence, and
Yeah, Innocence. Then there was Curse of Darkness, which took like a. There was 360 games called Harmony Despair, Lords of Shadow 1,
mm-hmm.
Lords of Shadow 2. There's Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate, which was on 3DS, and I think they ported that to Xbox as well. Lords of Shadow 1 was supposed to be pretty good. 2 was supposed to be pretty bad.
You know what? They were very God of War esque in
Mm-hmm.
gameplay.
I don't know. These never really appealed to me. Like, even the ones on 64 were just like. The game is
Yeah,
so perfect in 2D. Why are you messing with this?
I
Why?
didn't. I wasn't feeling it on 64 at all.
Yeah,
It
I want to say I rented it once, and that's probably where my disdain began. And I'm just like, I don't care about any of these,
it didn't feel like Castlevania, but
No. There's also a Dreamcast game that was canceled called Resurrection. You guys can look up videos and stuff on that.
it's god awful.
It looks bad.
It
It's
it was trash, trash. I mean, I'm could it have been a decent game if they spent time on it? Maybe, but it's from what I played because I did. You could have played the demo, and the demo is still floating around out there somewhere.
yeah, I'm sure you can
Uh,
play it on PC.
um, it's horrible, but it is a demo. It was what they showed at E3. I think we mentioned it once before. I did see it. I did play it. Yeah, it's just awful.
Wes, were you? I mean, I didn't even have this in our notes, but I looked up a few things about Castlevania before we recorded today. I completely forgot about this, and I'm glad that I did, but I'm actually horrified that I had to remember this. They released Castlevania Judgment on the Wii. Do you remember this game, Wes?
I don't.
They made a Castlevania fighting game. A fighting game, Wes, with Castlevania. On the
I,
Wii. On the Wii, of
I
all
don't
things.
remember that at all.
I was horrified to have to remember that that existed. Yes.
uh, now I have to go look it up. But no, I don't remember that one at all.
Yeah, I think I would pick it up just to have it because that game's got to be like $5. Like no, there's no Castlevania games that want players that want that game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fighting fans that want. Nobody wants this game, Wes. Other than the fact that it says Castlevania Judgment on it, it's like a friggin' joke. I would buy it for $5. I
You know
would.
what? Let's look. Let's see. Let's see what game I has to say.
What the hell is Konami doing?
And it's
The
for
la-
the Wii.
It's for the Wii, Wes. But again, let me reiterate: it is a fighting game for the Wii, not
Oh,
PS3.
I do remember that game. Okay, I had to see the cover. Yes. I didn't play it. Um, yeah, it's cheap. It's like complete in box is like $17.
I mean, that's way more expensive than I would have thought it would be. But they probably sold like 5 copies, so it's probably
Mm.
a uncommon game, is what I would imagine.
Yep, I do remember that game. Now that I see the cover, I'm like, oh, okay, that's that game.
Yeah, yeah, I pushed it on my memories too. Don't worry. Anyways, guys, so there's that's our discussion around the evolution of it. There's obviously highs and lows. I did group them together on purpose to try to show you the 3D games are mostly trash. There's probably some good stuff in there, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
like Lords of Shadow 1's supposed to be pretty good. GBA games, DS games, classics. It's classic. You guys got to play them if you like Metroidvania style games. Same thing with Symphony of the Night. Then if you get back to the older ones, maybe you skip around. You hit your three, maybe you skip your two, get your Rondo of Blood and your four in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like I mentioned before, Netflix has an anime,
Mm-hmm.
um, 3 seasons of Castlevania or
Four. It's 4 seasons.
They were so good, so good. But it sparked all new interest in Castlevania again.
I got to go back and watch those, man. The only reason I knew there was four because I looked it up before the show and I was like, how many seasons are there? It's four. If there was like three, I'd be more committed. I don't.
Well,
I need the time to watch them.
the last season focused on Richter.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because like the first few seasons focused on Trevor Belmont,
Mm-hmm.
and then the last season focused on Richter. It's good. It's really good.
I'm gonna have to go back and check it out. I mean, I currently don't have a Netflix. I hate Netflix for the most part. I really don't like them. Um, and I currently don't have a subscription until something like really compels me to buy Netflix. Then
Mhm.
I'll probably try to dive in and watch them again. But we'll see. Konami, make a new Castlevania game for Christ's sake. And none of this three. I don't want any of this three. You can make a 3D game as long as you make a 2D one to go with it. So when the 3D one fails, I have something to enjoy. That's my stipulation. That's if you care what I say.
Yeah, give us another old school 2D Castlevania goodness.
Get Igarashi back and make Castlevania Symphony of the Night 2. Only don't call it that. Call it something completely different. But get him, get the artist, get the musician back. Like, you need all that stuff.
Look, if Ubisoft can turn Prince of Persia into a 2D goodness, come on, Konami, you could do the same thing with Castlevania.
The Lost Crown was so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Can you imagine a Castlevania in the vein of Lost Crown,
I mean, I can
Lost Kingdom?
easily. Easily. Igarashi is making. If you guys don't know, just a quick side note, he works for Inti Crates, I think is the company he works for, but they make like Curse of the Moon, which is like the old school, like one like it plays like Castlevania 3. There's Curse of the Moon 1, Curse of the Moon 2. Then he also made Bloodstained Ritual of the
Mhm.
Night, and that's like a Symphony of the Night sequel. Fantastic game. Is it as good as Symphony of the Night? No. Is it damn good? Yes, it is
Oh yeah,
damn good.
it's
So
really good.
if you need something else to play, go check that out. As we do each month, it is time for our pulse check. Wes, you got the high pick this month. I got the
Mhm.
low pick. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first.
Do it.
My high pick is a game from the Dreamcast, and same vein as the our topics of the survival horror. This was like an weird type offshoot kind of game. It's crazy. It's called Illbleed for the Dreamcast.
Now this
And
one's kind of up there in price, which is why you picked the high pick, right?
mhm.
I don't know anything about this game other than like the cover looks cool.
You were a bunch of teenagers going in an amusement park that you gotta survive all these traps and monsters and stuff like that.
So like Saw in an amusement
In
park.
an amusement park.
Okay. I mean, it looks kind of cool. It's a Dreamcast horror game. Now, was this like Survivor horror? Like, how did it play?
It
Was it?
had, I want to say it had tank controls,
Oh Jesus. Okay.
but it's super expensive, yeah. Because like loose, Illbleed will run you just the disc $168.
That's a lot.
Complete in box, you're looking at 270.
Dang. All right. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's not the
Yeah.
most expensive Dreamcast, but it's definitely up there.
But it's up there. And then if you happen to find a seal copy, you're looking at about $420.
It's like I told y'all if you listen to the rest of the episode earlier. Horror games, RPGs, those are the ones that are going to go up in value.
It's crazy. The game itself was average. I'm trying to remember what the reviews were back in the day. It was different. It was different. It wasn't Resident Evil, but it stood on its own for being what it was. Being the survival horror game it was.
I'm checking now. I'm seeing what it was on Metacritic. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Illbleed, Metacritic. You got a critic score of 61.
Mm-hmm.
A user score is much more favorable than 8.4. Interesting. Almost like some revisionist history. Like
Mm-hmm.
people clung on to this later on, I'm guessing. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those titles that, a lot of people ignored.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you were, diehard Dreamcast fanboy, and you knew it was coming and, you picked it up. But it's a shame. It wasn't a bad game. It was fine. Just very overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. It probably didn't sell well, which I'm sure this game probably had a low print run. Definitely an uncommon title on the Dreamcast at the very least. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
rare, definitely uncommon. My pick was the low end of things, and now this game is awesome. This is a really good game if you like teenage horror movies like Scream. This is what the game evokes. They're making a remake on PS5. Do I recommend you get the remake? I don't know. I think the PS4 version is totally great, and it's called Until Dawn, and it's absolutely awesome. Is it the scariest game I've ever played? No, but I would, it's a good story. This is a choice-based game. Just so you guys know, we talked about choice-based games early in the episode. It is a Quantic Dream-like game where the choices you make affect who lives, who dies, affects the outcome. You can do all the different things, right? At the end of the story, I'm not going to give anything away. I screwed up pretty bad. Everyone died. So that is possible. That is an outcome that can happen. Don't be stupid like me. I won't tell you what happened or why I did it or how I did it. Mistakes were made. Okay. But Until Dawn is super cheap. PS4 loose copies $8, complete in box is 12, and if you can afford the hit to your wallet, a sealed copy will run you a whopping $14.
Wow. You know what? When we were talking about this game, it's one I don't own, but I just started to look for it out in the wild. I can't find it anywhere.
It's awesome, dude. It sold pretty well. Surprisingly, Sony never made a sequel to it, and maybe they're probing for that with this remake of, a PS4 title. Definitely worth getting, Wes. Especially, I mean, like I said, you can get a complete in box one is $12, bro. Like that's nothing nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even go to McDonald's for $12. So, I mean, I guess you could. You're probably gonna leave hungry. All right, guys. So that's our show. I hope you guys enjoyed this eerie episode of the Nerd Enthusiast Gaming Podcast. Wes, thank you for joining me today, sir.
Of course, man. It's always fun being here, talking about games.
Absolutely. If people want to follow you, where can they do that at, sir?
You can catch me on Instagram at Grendel5XBX, or if you're ever in the Atlantic City area, come stop by Level Up Entertainment.
Awesome. I'm Matt. You guys can follow me at from NJ2CA. The 2 is a number 2 over on Twitter. Be sure to follow the company and stuff too at Nerd Enthusiasts. You guys can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X if you want to call it X, all those things. Make sure you guys subscribe over on YouTube, ring the bell for notifications. 5-star reviews over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify really help us out. And if you really like what you heard today, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It helps us out dramatically. You can support us for as little as $1 a month, and those go right back into making our shows better. If you guys like our video content, you can find all of our legacy footage over on youtube.com/nerdenthusiast. That's our main channel. Most of our stuff is on there. We have this new channel, which you're probably seeing here. If you're not seeing it here, then go check out our new channel. It's youtube.com/at Nerdthusiast Gaming. That's where our segments come out each week, and you guys can get the most from us as soon as possible. After the full video airs, we put it all up over on the main Nerdthusiast page. But follow us at youtube.com/at Nerdthusiast Gaming.